All right, I believe we're live. We've got all three guys in attendance here. Let's get it started. How's it going, everybody? Noah Hiles, Andrew Destin, Jason Mackey coming to you live just over an hour before first pitch of the Pirates 2024 season. We've got a lot to break down. We're also going to give a little bit of time for some more people to hop in and start viewing. And throughout your viewership, you can comment any questions you might have for us to answer throughout the entirety of this show below on either Facebook, X, or YouTube, and we can get to those. But before we dive into the questions, first off, just got to ask, Jason and Andrew, how you guys doing? New baseball season underway.
I'm deferring to Jason on this one first. I'm excited for baseball season. It's a hectic day just because, hey, we got a Penguins game in 4 hours too. Obviously, that's of much less interest on this podcast, on this show, but doing well, enjoying the beautiful weather here, and can't wait for it to be baseball season in basically 60 minutes. How about you, Jason?
I think they call that Bucks and Pucks, Andrew, on Sportsnet Pittsburgh. Tune in.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is. And I think I'm sitting in the Sportsnet Pittsburgh seats here. I apologize to anybody watching for the background noise. Can you guys hear that?
No, not really.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty well covered.
It is very loud here. We talked to Derek Shelton in the dugout. You could barely hear yourself talk. You could barely hear Shelty speak. So I got the volume cranked up on my headphones. I'm doing well. It's great to have baseball back. I've missed this. It's not quite opening day in Pittsburgh, but it's still opening day. And, man, I can't wait. An hour. This whole day has just crawled by. I feel like this whole day has been about 3 days worth of anticipation, but excited to see it get going.
We are going to get going here soon. Jason, you're down in Miami covering the team right now. You've been in Florida since really Super Bowl Sunday, I think, is the day after you went down south. I want us all to kind of answer this question, but we'll start with you because you've been around there the longest. Just give me your biggest takeaway from spring training this year with this team.
That there's a different vibe, that there's a different expectation. I've covered a lot of crap with this team, non-competitive teams. I thought Brian Reynolds said it best, where you wanted to convince yourself you were going to win, but you kind of knew that there just wasn't a chance. I don't look at this team and have that feeling. I look at this team and, we can criticize the starting rotation, and I will, and I don't think it's deep enough. I don't think they did enough, but I look at this lineup and what the bullpen can be, what they have on the way. This can and should be a competitive team. This should be a more competitive team than we've seen around here in some time. I think it can be a really exciting summer. So, that's more than just one takeaway, but I look at this lineup and see Major League Baseball players basically from 1 through 9. And it's been a little while since I could say that. And so I'm genuinely curious to see how that manifests itself once the regular season starts. And again, I keep bringing it up and we'll keep talking about it, but just a little bit concerned if the pitching is going to do enough to support it. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'll say for me, it's expanding on your thoughts, Jason. Familiarity is a term that comes to mind for me. And I know it's something that I wrote about as much, and you kind of touched on it there, but these are guys that we're familiar seeing. It's no longer, hey, this is somebody who's coming up to the big leagues. You're hoping that they can stick. You're hoping that they can produce. It's that familiarity, a core, a group of guys that you can look to and say, hey, that's your leadership group. That's the guys who are locked in. Think about it. This year, or last year at this time, Brian Reynolds had just signed an extension after asking for a trade. Now he's a guy who's cemented here. His time in Pittsburgh is cemented. Mitch Keller is as well. So the thing that seemed different to me is that there's a recurring cast of guys, and you can even expand that to the ones who aren't signed long-term deals, like a David Bednar, of, hey, these are guys who have proven they can do it at the big league level, and we're adding to that rather than bringing in, a flux of veterans hoping that they can instill something in the lineup and the rotation.
Yeah, and to build upon your point, Andrew, I think my biggest takeaway from this spring was the top producers are the guys that this franchise wanted to see have a good spring. I feel like in past springs, the best hitter was like a Diego Castillo or something, a guy who just needed to play out of his mind to even have a chance to make the team this year. Or this year, if you look at the people who kind of led the charge, and don't get me wrong, there were guys who played well enough to earn their way onto the team. But the stars of the spring are the guys that this team needs to be the stars of the regular season. The Oneil Cruzes, the Brian Hayes, the Henry Davises. And I think that's another really good sign for a team that's looking to go from rebuild to competitive. And when you see that production from your lineup, when you see, some of your younger pitchers, a guy like Jared Jones, for example, really just taking the ball and making that spot in the rotation his, that's what you want to see from your top prospects, your guys that are getting extended, your guys that are sharpied into the starting lineup. So I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from the spring. We'll move it on now. I'll just throw it around again. We'll start with Mackey again. Just the biggest storyline for the first month in the season. And Jason, it sounds to me like you're probably going to talk more about the starting pitching. Is it as simple as that?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I mean, the rest of the stuff is just window dressing, Noah. I mean, it doesn't matter if they give up 9 runs. And I just worry, even that 5th starter spot, I think it's so consequential. And this has come up a lot in conversation around this team over the past couple of days. The NL Central is mediocre. The Pirates, again, they should defend well. They should have a pretty good bullpen. I think they should score enough runs to be competitive. Wouldn't surprise me at all if this team was middle third of MLB, 13, 14, 15, 16, ranked somewhere in there in OPS and runs scored. To me, where I see it potentially coming apart is the rotation not being good enough. And I would like to sit here and think, well, Jared Jones, he's going to come up here and he's going to do exactly what he did in spring, and it's going to be amazing. Martin Perez is going to have a .60 ERA just like he did in spring, and it's going to be amazing. Marco Gonzales, his spring didn't matter. He's going to revert back to some of the best form of his career where, he was an opening day starter 3 straight years in Seattle. All of that's crazy. We know that's not all going to happen. Like, stuff's going to go wrong. Guys are going to get hurt. Performance isn't going to match expectations. And you need to have depth. And I just, if something goes wrong here, where do the Pirates turn? Is anybody going to feel a lot better about Quinn Priester coming up here? Is anybody going to feel a lot better about Luis Ortiz, who had been in a relief role, coming up here? I mean, I would love to see them bring up Paul Skeens, but it's yet another reason why I wish they would have gotten a little bit more, done a little bit more in the offseason, added depth. And I just, I hate to crush poor Bailey Falter because he's a nice man, but I don't see what he did in spring to earn the number 5 job and to run him out there every 5th day. So, yes, early on, that's a big storyline for me because I want to see how it plays, and I hope we're all wrong. I hope it's much ado about nothing, but I have a feeling it won't be.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm just playing devil's advocate if I disagree with Jason on that one. I mean, the rotation is the biggest question mark to me, the biggest takeaway. The only thing that I'll add on to that is also you look at the additions that they did make late in spring, like a guy like Domingo Germán. It's not like that. It's exactly a signing that inspires confidence into somebody like myself. I don't look at that as, hey, this is a guy who also would be a solution. But in terms of, for me, a different storyline that I would turn to, it's Oneil Cruz. And listen, we saw in spring training what he did at the plate, 7 home runs. I mean, this is a guy who, top 5 in Pirates history for a spring training performance in terms of power output. That was really impressive in its own right. But with Oneil Cruz, I still want to see what they get from him defensively. And that's not bashing on him because of coming back from the left ankle injury. It's not anything there. It's just seeing him play a full season of defense at shortstop in the big leagues. There were a lot of question marks about that coming into the 2023 campaign. This is somebody who has all the talent in the world, can certainly play shortstop. I just want to see what he can do there because if he plays league average to above average defense at short, complementing that with a 20, 30 home run type of season, which he's amply capable of, that could be gigantic for the Pirates. But obviously the rotation is still the biggest takeaway. But I think Oneil Cruz is a storyline that you can't get enough of and you can't talk about enough.
What do you guys make of him batting 6th today? I hate it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll start with this one. I don't get it either. At some point in time, a guy's just going to have to be a power hitter. He's going to have to be a mainstay in your lineup, and you can't switch everything around based on matchups. This is the guy who gives us the best chance to come up to the plate and put one in the seats every time he's up to bat. And that guy shouldn't be hitting 6th. I don't care who's on the mound or what arm they throw with. It could be an ambidextrous pitcher. I don't care. If your best home run hitter at this point in his career or wherever, he shouldn't be batting 6th.
Like, it's an incomplete or incongruent message to me, right? Like, partially what Derek Shelton is doing here is optimizing his lineup against a left-handed pitcher. Okay, well, if that's true, then Edward Olivares should be in the lineup. Right. Edward Olivares is one of their best right-handed hitters. handled left-handed pitching extremely well. Okay, where do you put Edward Olivares? Well, you should play Connor Joe at first base at that point, create an extra outfield spot. If you're going to fully load up against lefties, against a lefty, and that's why you're dropping Oneil Cruz, theoretically, you're saying Connor Joe's a better play at the top of your lineup against the left-handed pitcher, which might be true. I'm not even disagreeing with you, but like, you haven't gone all the way. Why are we not playing Olivares then? Like, it's almost like they don't want to hurt Rowdy Tellez's feelings. I don't get that, but you're going to drop Cruz. I agree with you, Noah. I would just put Cruz number one, and I'm going to say, hey, you're my franchise guy. Lefty, righty, guy throws with his foot. I don't care. Like, you're at the top of that lineup. Do your thing. I trust you. And I didn't love that. I don't love the message that sends to young guys like Jack Sawinski, Oneil Cruz, young guys who are going to need to be a part of this thing. We're first game out of the chute. There's a lefty on the mound. We're like, oh, wait. No, you're going to hit sixth and you're going to go to the bench. No, I want to manage my team and trust my younger players with responsibility. I didn't like it.
Yeah. And I think, to piggyback off of what you're saying, Jason, I think that's probably the number one storyline I kind of have on my eye on in the first month is how Derek Shelton gets strategic with the new pieces that they have here. I mean, they did make a decent amount of additions, albeit, nothing like mind-blowing or, it didn't necessarily break the bank, but you look, there are new starters. There are some rookies up here, and you can get creative with your lineup combinations. You can get creative on how you use that fifth spot in the rotation. Do you piggyback? Do you use an opener? Do you kind of count on a guy to give you 5 innings and go with the traditional 5 starters? Maybe even go with a 6-man rotation if you want to get crazy with it. I mean, there's a lot of different things that I feel like this 26-man roster you can do with. And I think that especially early on when maybe some guys who are going to be contributors later in the year, like Paul Skeens, when they're not around, now's the time to get a little creative and get a little, outside the box. And it'll be fun to see how they go about that. So those are the storylines. Let's get into just the overall season outlook here. I have some accolades that I wrote down. I just want to go through them all. Well, again, we'll start with Jason and go around the horn. Who's the most valuable player on this year's team? 2024 Pirates MVP. When the season's done, who will it be, Jason?
Brian Hayes. I think he wins a platinum glove. He should have won a platinum glove last year, and I think he winds up in the All-Star game. I think that what we saw last season offensively from him is real, and I think this is a year where you look at him and be like, holy crap, is that a steal of a contract? But that's my MVP. What about you guys?
Either I'm a lemming or I'm a genius just like you, Jason. I'm saying that it's Brian Hayes as well, and tipping my hand there too. I said he's going to be an all-star for the Pirates this year. I think he continues where he left off in the second half.
Yeah. The next answer to your question, Noah, I don't even know what the question is. It's going to be like Eric Lauer. I'm going to be like Ryder Ryan. I don't care what the topic is. I just want to see if Andrew will go with it.
I will gladly disagree. I will gladly defer. I'm going to have a unique answer.
All right.
Okay. I also think Hayes is in store for a big year. I mean, just even looking at his numbers last year, I mean, a 4-WAR guy with so much more to achieve. I think like his potential offensively could put him into maybe an MVP conversation if he really can match his second half offensive production all season long with that platinum glove defense. But I'm going to go with someone else. I'm going to go with a guy. When you talk about value, I think if this guy has a great season, it will be the most valuable to the team, and that's Henry Davis. This team took a huge blow at the start of the offseason when Endy Rodriguez, announced that he would be out for the year. They came into spring not knowing what that catcher position was going to be like. They brought in Yasmani Grandal because they weren't, I think, 100% confident that Hank could hold it down at the 2 spot for 162, but he really showed what he's capable of, I think, this spring. And if he's a guy that can continue to play as an everyday catcher defensively and be an above-average bat in the middle of the lineup, I mean, how many teams have that? A solid answer behind the plate. And that's also going to have an impact on, as we've all pointed out, the biggest weakness of this team, which is starting pitching. If your catcher performs well behind the plate, if he's stealing strikes, if he's, got a good rapport, which I think he does with the younger guys on this staff, which is what you kind of need when you're trying to develop consistency in a 1 through 5. That's all important. So I think if Henry Davis has a great season, this team is going to have a good season or a great season. So that's why he would be my MVP. We'll keep it going now. And Jason, please don't say Ryder Ryan. Cy Young for this season.
Wait, what was the question? Cy Young?
Best pitcher, the Cy Young of this season.
That's easy. Hunter Stratton. He just had a baby, made an opening day roster for the first time. He's doing great. He's thriving. I don't see any other way. Well, all right. So I'm sort of split between Hunter Stratton and Kyle Nicholas, but I think what's going to push it over the edge for me is Hunter Stratton deriving confidence from making the opening day roster. What about you, Andrew?
You stole him again. I got nothing on you, man. In reality, my answer is David Bednar, which I thought might have differed from your real answer. I'm not sure, but I think this guy's one of the best closers in the game. I'm not saying anything groundbreaking. That's obvious. I mean, he's won back-to-back All-Star games. I think he gets to a third this year. There's nobody who's going to be better in that back end. And listen, it's going to really help when they get Holderman and Majinski back healthy. And obviously Chapman in that 7th, 8th inning role as the multiple inning guy who can get the ball to Bednar is going to be really impactful. But it's a luxury to have a closer like Bednar, and the Pirates are lucky to have him. And I think he will, again, shut the door on a very frequent occasion for the Pirates.
All right. I'm going to interject real quick. I don't seriously think Stratton or Kyle Nicholas will do that. I just wanted to answer second. I'm going Paul Skeens. I think Skeens gets up here, and I think he wows the living daylights out of people, potentially wins the Rookie of the Year, and is just so darn good. And there's a reason, like their starting rotation is what it is right now. It's not great. I've picked them to win in 83 games, and Skeens is part of that. I think he's going to be the next big thing. I think he already is to a degree, but he's my pick. Noah, what say you?
I'll go with the basic pick. Mitch Keller right now. I mean, until Skeens arrives, Mitch Keller's really going to have to hold it down. I mean, I remember there were times last year when this team was on a losing skid and they handed him the ball and he brought it to a stop. You know, he would give 7, 8 shutout innings or lock solid innings and, get this team back on track. He's probably going to have to do that multiple times in the first couple of months in order for this team to really avoid falling into a funk and find its footing and find a rhythm. And that's what you do when you're the guy who gets the biggest extension any pitcher has ever had in the history of this franchise. That's what you do when you're an all-star. That's what you do when you're the club's ace, which he is. So that would be my pick. I think that, Skeens, I don't disagree with you, Jason. I think he's going to come up and be every bit as good, if not better than as advertised. But until then, from start to finish, Keller's going to have to hold it down and be the one guy out of these 5 that you can look at and say, all right, bullpen, we're only going to need 6 outs from you when this guy's on the mound. There's tremendous value in that.
Yeah. Well, and especially a game like today, too, and early on, I don't think Derek Shelton's going to want to run his bullpen into the ground. If Mitch Keller can do something like that today, I think they would certainly take that and set them up for the rest of the series.
All right, we'll start with Andrew here because I don't want to have to I don't want to have Mackey, pick someone else. Alika Williams is the Rookie of the Year. So, Andrew, who is this team's Rookie of the Year?
You're stealing every answer from me. I love Alika Williams. No, I'm going dark horse. I'm going Jared Triolo. I think that what he showed last year in a couple of months, especially in September, I think those swing changes that he made are legit. I think the swing path is in a much better spot. I think he's able to get and tap into his power with that frame a little bit better. And I really enjoyed what I saw from him defensively playing at second base. This is a guy who won a Gold Glove in the minor leagues at third. I mean, on 90% of big league teams, he's probably a starting third baseman just predicated simply on that defense. He's such a good defender. So I really enjoyed what I saw from him there. I think at second, he'll be able to hold down that fort pretty darn well. And I think with the bat, he's going to be a solid average guy who constantly puts the ball in play. He really cut down on the strikeouts in September onward. I really like Triolo, and that's just me playing devil's advocate from Paul Skeens, but I do really think that Triolo is going to be a heck of a ball player for this team.
Yeah, Triolo has a sneaky, funny personality, too. I like him the more I see him. He's just a good dude, good baseball player. I think that's an overused cliche, but he's just like the exact demeanor you would want in a young player. To me, that's Triolo. I'll go Hank Davis. I think Skeens is going to come up and have a really, really big impact. But in terms of somebody, position player every day at an important position, like Noah was saying, I've just been so impressed by the work Henry has done. Not that I should be surprised by it. No, I don't think anybody that knows Henry well would be surprised that he's willing to put in the work. But yeah, a rookie that's really affecting things offensively and defensively. I think this is going to be a very big year for Henry. The defense looks totally capable. He's not somebody that you look at like, no, it's been very good. So I'm going Henry.
Then I'll take Skeens. I mean, if you guys don't want to pick him, then I will. He's the top pitching prospect in baseball. He's probably the second best pitcher in this organization, if not the best already. And he hasn't even thrown an inning in the big leagues yet. I'm excited to see him, pitch however many starts he gets in the minor leagues. I anticipate it not being a ton. And I'm even more excited to cover his major league debut this year. I think it's going to be one of the more memorable call-ups this franchise has had in its history, honestly. So
yeah.
Before we continue, I think we need to give a shout out to the show's presenting sponsor, which is North Shore Tavern. All three of us are big North Shore Tavern guys, right across the street from PNC Park, next door to Mike's Beer Bar. They've got some great food, great drinks, great atmosphere to stop around and pay a visit to either before the game, after the game. Make sure you head down there, especially next weekend for the home opener. And I'm sure if you head down there enough, you'll see the three of us there because we are big time frequenters of that wonderful place.
We need to plan something down there.
We definitely
seriously,
do.
Guys. Like, I'll talk to Mike and Jim about doing something. Maybe like a meet and greet, meet the team. Yeah. So with ball being back, we get to do all this stuff. I'm so excited, and we can have a steak or two or a pop after the game or something. So exciting stuff.
I was gonna say, now that I'm on the beat, like my experience with North Shore Tavern and Mike's Beer Bar will be a lot different baseball season compared to what it's been in the past summers. Because
what sober?
Yeah, really. The biggest stress of my game day last year was making sure I closed my tab before first pitch and getting across the street to the bleachers. So now it's a little bit different. Now I'm going to be trying to file and meet deadline and then head over there for a nightcap with my boy Andrew and Jack when he's around. So we'll keep it going now. Guys, how many All-Stars on this team? I'll actually start off. I'll start with this one. I'll say 3.
Okay.
And I feel like that's conservative. I feel like there could be as many as 4 or 5 if things go right. But we know in baseball, nothing ever goes absolutely perfect, right? But I think you're going to have one pitcher. And if I had to pick one pitcher, that's David Bednar. And then I think the left side of the infield both gets their first All-Star nod. Brian and Oneil Cruz, I think both have the potential to establish themselves as some of the top young stars, even though, Brian's not even necessarily that young anymore, but some of the top infield stars of today's game. I think this could be a breakout year for both, and that would include an All-Star appearance. So I'm going to say 3, Bednar, Cruz, and Hayes. We'll throw it over to Andrew. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to. I hate to do it to Cruz, but I'm going to keep him off and say same with the other 2 guys. I'd love to see Cruz there. I think he's got all sorts of potential there to do it. And that's not to say that, there isn't the potential there just given the shortstop depth in the National League. That's another point to bring up there is that it's not as if that's a talent-laden group across the National League of bona fide studs there. But I think you stick with the guys who have proven it a little bit more at this level. Bednar certainly, and I think Hayes. We've said it on here. He's the real deal. I think he puts it all together and has that first All-Star season.
Noah, you might have convinced me to go with 3. And I really think Brian's going to make it. I have a tough time turning away Bednar. At the same time, 3 does feel very lofty. It feels like we're all drinking an obscene amount of Kool-Aid, and maybe we are. But at the same time, like, I've watched what Oneil has done, and I think a whole lot of him. And then I think about the home run derby and how darn entertaining that would be. Like, come on, man. He would do it. I think it would be a lot of fun. I think he would hit a ball that, left the state of Texas, I feel like. Selfishly, I would want him to make it because I'm sure we would send 2 people down, I'd get to go and like columnize off the All-Star game. And so I'm going to go with 3. I'm going to go with 3 in an upset: Bednar, Hayes, and Cruz.
Yeah, I just think, like you said, Jason, the viral factor that Oneil Cruz has with fan influence now a part of the All-Star game. I mean, no player in baseball can have viral highlights like this guy. And I think that might give him the pushover. Jason, I know you got to get going soon. You said this team's going to win 83 games. So that takes away your record prediction. Instead of that, just give us a rundown of today's matchup, something, maybe a player to watch, a key to the game.
A key to the game is going to be handling a left-hander and then handling a left-hander tomorrow. And for 5 more days, it seems like that is crazy. But I would say their right-handed hitters are the keys to the game. Connor Joe, believe it or not, is one. Andrew McCutchen, obviously, is one. They're going to need to create some offense here. They absolutely are. And Jesus Luzardo is not an easy guy to pick up. It's not an easy guy to pick up if you're left-handed. So I think they really need to lean on some of their right-handed hitters and be able to, that succession of hitters that I mentioned, 1 through 4, get enough out of the left-handers. But, I look at somebody like Andrew McCutchen, 299, by the way, has never been afraid from having the flair for the dramatic. Had a fun conversation with Kutch yesterday about wanting to get to 300 and just be done with it. I think there's something there. So we'll see. But I think there's going to be a right-handed hitter who makes a difference today.
All right. Well, Mackey, do you need to get going or do you want to stick around?
I'm going to I'll stick around for 5 minutes. I'm like worried about them shutting this down and then going into pregame introductions. And then I'm going to be like screaming in a place where I can't be screaming. So we'll and I also got to grab a bite to eat. So we'll do like 5 minutes and then I'll just dip out of here.
All right. Sounds good. We'll keep it here then with not game predictions, but just season predictions. Andrew, Mackey has them winning 83. What say you? What's their record? And I swear it better not be 83.
No, it's actually the inverse. I got the reverse of that.
38.
No, so close. No, I'm going 79 and 83. I think that the issue is just the rotation. I can't get past that. And to me, it's can they tread water until they get to a time like June or July, or maybe it's even earlier like May. But I think it's just there's reinforcements on the way, whether that's guys coming back from an injury like a JT Brubaker or even a Mike Burrows further down the line. If we ever get to see him this year in 2024 in Pittsburgh, obviously with Paul Skeens, I think the pitching is just too much for me to overcome. Now, on that same note, the NL Central, if you ask me, I think it's the worst division in baseball. Mediocre is absolutely the way to put it. So there is certainly the potential for this team to ascend to being in a playoff spot, if not outright winning the division. I think you could make a legitimate argument for all 5 teams in this division, except maybe the Milwaukee Brewers. I think they're the team that I'm lowest on. But I would think you could make an argument for all 5 of, hey, this is a team that could win the division outright, or this is a team that could finish in last. I see the Pirates being somewhere in the middle, probably finishing in 3rd. I think that's why I got them at 79 wins. What about you, Noah?
As currently constructed, I think they're an 80-win team. I think they're just under 500, which is right in the middle of where your 2 predictions were. But I say it's currently constructed because as someone who's followed this team for his whole life, you would hope that if this team's within reach of a postseason spot come July, the roster will look a little different, right? I feel like that's something that's owed to the fans and the other guys on the team as well, that if they're, within a fighter's chance of a wild card spot or very well could be within reach of a division crown, that additions will be made, maybe at first base, maybe to the starting rotation or just anywhere where they're needed, depending on injury or lack of production. And I feel like 1 or 2 more reasonable additions, this could be an 84, an 85 win team. And now you're talking about the playoffs. But as it currently stands, I agree. I mean, I think it's hovering around 500, begging for just 1 or 2 more pieces to actually have a shot at competing in the postseason. So we've reached the 30-minute mark. I know Jason's got to get going here. Andrew, I feel like we can stick around here. We got a decent-sized crowd, so we can keep it going. Jason, Go enjoy your last couple days as a beat writer. We're ready to take your job from you when you get back.
That's fine. You guys may have it. You guys have a great time. Keep up the great work. I'll see y'all.
Enjoy Miami for us, man. Your favorite city.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait.
Mr. 305.
Yeah, you know me. All right, later on.
There he goes. Jason Mackey, folks. All right. Andrew, what do you think? We could do about 10 more minutes here?
Yeah, let's run it for sure, man. There's so much to talk about. It's opening day. Come on, it's a
Right.
national holiday, right?
So we've got a decent-sized audience listening in now, viewing in now. If you guys have any questions, be sure to comment them on either YouTube, Facebook, or X, and we will answer them here on the screen. So this isn't really a question, but it's a comment. It's from Mike Snyder. He says that they're facing 4 straight lefties this weekend. I wouldn't look too much into the matchups at this point. I'm sure Shelton wants to get everybody some game action in the first week. And I kind of agree with Mike. I think that this first week, and really this first month, we're just going to see a lot of different lineup combinations. We're going to see them, bat guys at the top of the order and then at the bottom of the order. Like later in the week, you're going to see lefty righty stuff. And then you might just see some guys actually get an opportunity to hit, in the cleanup spot, lefty on lefty or something like that. So I'm not saying I agree. I don't think it's a huge worry. I think I also get Jason's point where it's like, why are you catering to it at all? Andrew, what say you? Do you kind of agree with Mike's stance here?
Yeah, I'm with him. I think the only add-on that I'll add is just, listen, you look at the way that Derek Shelton has managed this roster dating back to his first year as manager here with the Pirates. It is, all right, we are alternating, we are, manipulating righty matchups. I don't think you look into it too far other than this is him trying to play percentages, trying to play numbers, and early on, if anything, you could make the argument that it's trying to protect some guys. Like Oneil Cruz, by dropping him in the lineup, you could make a legitimate argument of, hey, we don't want your first at bat to be a strikeout against Jesus Luzardo. That's a devil's advocate approach of, hey, listen, this is somebody who's put into a tough situation. Let's drop him down the lineup. So I view it as, don't look into it too much. This is how the 162 game season is going to go. Everybody's going to get in there, especially once they get into the bullpen. I would imagine the at bats are going to be probably fairly equal throughout the roster.
All right, we got a couple here from Fieldy. He wants to know, Andrew, another Andrew here from Delco. What's an unknown name that will make a difference for the Buccos this year? I actually like this question. I can start first if you'd like for me to go first, Andrew.
For sure. Yeah, man, absolutely. Go for it.
I mean, it's relatively speaking, like I'm not going to throw out some guy who's in single A right now, but if we're going off the grid answers here, don't count out Brent Honeywell.
Okay.
Just because I just think that he's a guy who comes over, a former high-end prospect. And I know that it's a different regime now, but the Pirates traditionally have done really well with guys who once had a high ceiling and kind of needed a change of scenery and everything. And just with a different role, I'm not predicting that Honeywell is going to win a Cy Young here or be an all-star, but would I be shocked if we're in September and fans feel comfortable when Honeywell is on the mound for the 7th inning? No, I wouldn't. I think that, he has such a unique vibe about him. One of the only, I think the only screwball pitcher in the game. So that alone makes me want to kind of see him do well there. So that would be my pick. Andrew, who do you got?
Man, Honeywell is such a great pick. And I'm going to go down a similar trajectory to you just because, listen, a bullpen, you look at the one that the Pirates have right now, I think it's either 2 or 3 guys in the bullpen, same as last year's starting, opening day roster. Listen, the bullpen is going to be fluid. It's going to be malleable. There's going to be different guys coming in all the time. So on that note, I'm going to go with another unique case, and that's a guy that I wrote about, and that's Brad Case. Listen, it's going to be a long shot for Brad to get up here. I'm hearing that he's probably going to start the year in Double-A Altoona, but he does something unique that nobody else in the Pirates organization does, and that's being a side-armed submarine type of guy. And now he's throwing the same velocity as he was from back over the top. Really unique arm angle with the sinker, with the cutter, with the slider. I'm really interested to see what happens with Brad Case, because if this goes well, yeah, he could make a similar jump as to a Ryan Thompson, as it could be that kind of Steve Cishek type of role for the Pirates. And I'm not saying he's going to appear in 60, 70 games out of the bullpen, but if you see a side armor come up to PNC Park, don't be surprised if it's Brad Case.
We'll keep it here. Andrew's got another question. How many homers does Oneil Cruz hit into the river this year? We're talking the Allegheny River, right? Because, you could think he could hit them in McCovey Cove. There are other rivers throughout baseball. Isn't there like a little river in Kauffman Stadium, right?
Yep.
They got the waterfall. Yeah. We'll just keep it Allegheny River specific. Andrew, we'll put the over under at 1. Does he hit
Yeah.
more? Does he hit 1, and does he hit more than 1?
I know it's really hard to land one in there. I'm gonna say he gets 2, maybe 3. And hey, why not Monongahela? Am I doing that right, Pittsburgh people? Like, he could hit it all the way to Monongahela. So that's how you know I'm a transplant.
Yeah.
Regardless, this dude can mash it. I think he can do it. He can hit a couple out. I think he at least gets 1, probably 2 or 3 into Allegheny, just because he's got that pull power. It's not so dissimilar from what Pedro Alvarez did here a while back. And I know Pedro only got a handful of them. I think Cruz can match that, if not better. What about you?
Yeah, I think he hits a couple, at least on a bounce, and I wouldn't be shocked to see multiple on a fly. I'm going to make an even bolder prediction, though, Andrew, and that is Oneil Cruz is going to spill at least 5 beers in the Miller Lite home run deck with home runs this summer. And I've witnessed him do that a couple of times, and the summer's passed, so that will be fun to keep an eye on. Got some other questions here. Michael wants to know team MVP predictions. We already gave those, so I'll read them off again in case he missed out. Mackey had Ke'Bryan Hayes, as did Andrew, and I said Henry Davis. Those were our MVP predictions. Chris Dell, our coworker, wants to know over under 75.5 wins for the Bucks. All 3 of us have them over. Jason with 83, Andrew with 79, myself with 80. And I'll continue this conversation there, Andrew. Let's say they do finish right around 500. We'll even say 82 and 82. Is that a successful year for this team?
I think so, because I think we need to get, just to back it up a little bit. I know this is a long conversation, but when you look at the 2023 season, right, they had a 14-win improvement over the 2022 campaign. It is really hard to dissect that season and make heads or tails of it. That month of April was not sustainable and not representative of what the Pirates were. The month of May, when they fell off a cliff, was not representative of what the Pirates were. That second half, from the end of, from August 1st onward, they were pretty much a 500 club. I don't even know if that was necessarily representative of what the Pirates were, but they played it. They did that, sustained that for a 2-month stretch. So I bring all of that up to say that last year was a big improvement. Was it probably inflated a little bit by a tremendous start? Yeah, a little bit. It's probably more similar to a 70 or 71 or 69 win team. They were probably more resemblant of that when you put everything all together. So I give that backdrop to say that they're going to take another step forward this year. And I think a 500 ball club is absolutely a success, because that means that they maximized off of what was already exceeding expectations of a 2023 campaign. And then you kind of match them. Anything above that is exceeding them to me.
Yeah, I kind of equated last season to 2011. And the Pirates fans watching might be able to understand what I'm talking about here, where 2011 was, for someone who grew up in the area, who's 29 years old, the first time I watched meaningful baseball past the month of May. It was the first time, it was Clint Hurdle's first year, and around the All-Star break, they were, I believe, 500 or maybe even a little bit over. And then you get to the trade deadline, and they're not sellers, they were buyers. And there was a notable buzz for the first time really on the North Shore in the lifetime of pretty much anyone who's in their 20s right now or younger. So that was kind of the start of it. And obviously it wasn't sustained. And so if last year was 2011, then I would equate this year to 2012. And I know 2012 is filled with bad memories for how it all played out in the end, right? That team had I believe it was over 20 games over 500 at one point, and finished with, I think, only like 78 wins. And that was a really disappointing ending. But it still kind of took the next step. It was more in the mix later into the year. And I think that in hindsight, you look back at 2012, that was the year Andrew McCutchen really established himself as a superstar, getting MVP votes. That was the year where guys like Starling Marte were up in the big leagues. That's the year where Garrett Cole was starting to knock on the door for the major leagues. So the picture was becoming a lot clearer. So that's why I would say it's going to be 2012. Now, I'm not predicting this team to be 20 games over 500 and collapse like that happened in 2012. I think it'll probably just be a more consistent. It's going to be 500 for most of the year, sometimes a couple games above, sometimes a couple games below, but I think it'll be more of a consistent journey, it won't be enough to probably get to the playoffs, again, as currently constructed. But if I had to say that that's what were to take place, 79 to 83 wins, and it were to go about that way, I would call it a success. Because like you said, Andrew, I mean, everyone's kind of taking the next step. Your lineup's in place. You got to figure if you're winning that many games, your key players are performing, and you enter 2025, which is the final year of the rebuild or whatever, locked and loaded to really, really compete. And I know fans don't want to have to wait even another year, but I think even the most passionate and loyal Pirates fans would admit that this team's ceiling is in the future, not right now. So we'll go into a couple more questions before we wrap this up. Cameron Hoover, our boy, wants to know, when is Skeens coming up to the big club? Andrew, just give me a month prediction here.
June. I don't think he's going to follow the Chris Bryant trajectory. This isn't going to be a 2 weeks manipulating service time thing. I think that, come on, he hasn't even pitched 10 minor league innings before. Listen, he had a heck of a season last year at LSU. Tremendous campaign. But they got to get him lengthened out. They got to get him used to being an every turn guy, not once a week, once every 5 starts. That's going to take a little bit of time. The Pirates are going to need to tread water until June. It's early June. I'm not saying this is going to be some June 30th call-up. Beginning of June, give him 8 to 10 starts in AAA. That's more than enough. Then get him up here. What about you?
I'll go a month earlier. I'll go May. I think that April, he's going to be so good that it's kind of like Jared Jones, where it's like, we can't deny it anymore. And I think there's going to be certain things that occur with the big league club where it's just clear. It's like, this team deserves to have this pitcher with this group. I mean, they both deserve each other. So I think that, yes, I don't imagine them taking their sweet time with him. I think they just want to get him, like you said, stretched out, throw a couple of 6-7 inning starts in AAA. But I think 4 or 5 starts in, if he's firing, I think he could be up.
Yeah.
Mike wants to know, do you see more of Kutch in the outfield this season? I'll start off here. Absolutely not.
Nope.
And that's not a slight on McCutchen. I mean, one, they just traded for another, or they just signed another outfielder like last week or 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, you add that on before Michael Taylor. Yeah, maybe. But now you're looking at it. I mean, there are 5 better offense or defensive outfielders on this opening day roster than McCutchen. And that's, again, not a slight at him. He's just older and hasn't played a lot in the outfield recently. So I don't think that that's in the best. I don't think that's what's best for him or the club. So I think that, we might see him 5 times. What did he play? 8 games in the outfield last year? Hard to imagine him having more of a presence in the outfield after tearing his Achilles, right? So, yeah, I think he is a DH for the rest of his days with an occasional outfield game once a month, maybe.
Yeah, I think listen, if you're setting an over-under on how many outfield starts he gets, I would say 7.5 is a good number to start at, just based off of last season. And I know he said he really wants to do it. He got a little bit of time out there. In spring training, he worked his outfield routes, all that sort of jazz. It's not a need. That's the biggest thing for me. It's one thing to be capable. It's one thing to be beneficial to a club. I think right now we're seeing McCutch in a position where he's capable. He could do it. He wouldn't be able to do it every day, but I don't know how much that benefits a team that's got a surplus of outfielders, especially, like you said, after signing Taylor.
All right. I think this might be our final question of the day here. Brock wants to know, out of all the free agent signings, what player has the best season out of that bunch? I actually love this question.
This is a great question.
I'll turn it over to you, Andrew. I want some time to think about it.
Yeah, I'll let you stir on this one. To me, I'm going to go Michael A. Taylor. I think that's the one for me because what he's going to do for that outfield defense and center. And this is by no means a slight at Jack Sawinski, but last year he was arguably the worst defender on the Pirates. And that's not because he's not a capable outfielder. It's because he was playing center field for the first time in his life. -10 defensive runs saved according to Fangraphs. Obviously, that wasn't good enough. The Pirates trust Sawinski in center, but they got a massive upgrade in Taylor. That switch there, just in terms of defense, that could be 3 or 4 more extra wins for the Pirates. I mean, this is a guy who's a Gold Glove center fielder. That's really huge for them. And also, they got him on the cheap. $4 million, I believe, was the contract for 1 year. Taylor's going to be really beneficial to the team and any offense they get from him. I know it's baseball, theory. I'm not breaking any ground here, but if he can hit 20 homers like he did last year, have about, an 810 OPS would be exceeding expectations. If he can just be a 750 guy and play above average to elite defense, that's huge. I think he's the best free agent signing, and he was one I was not expecting when he got signed that late in spring. How about you?
I'll go with another unexpected free agent. I'll say Aroldis Chapman. I just think that having Chapman in the back end of your bullpen allows you to use David Bednar as a weapon. And when you look at teams who were in a smaller market that have had success in the last decade, a lot of those teams had a weapon in the back end. And Andrew Miller, a la 2016 Cleveland Indians, something like that, where it's like, forget the last 3 outs of the game. We are going to bring in our best pitcher on the team to get us out of whatever jam we might need him to get us out of. That could be in the 5th inning, that could be in the bottom of the 9th, and it could be anywhere in between. And that would really, I think, having another guy who could serve as your backup option closer, that not only, there were times last year, Andrew, where Bednar just looked out of gas. They had just used him too much. He was making 6-out saves in June and July. So this team could stay in the mix for first place. They're not going to have to do that this year. And having that extra depth with a guy who has closed out World Series, who has pitched in October, albeit, he allows a lot of notable home runs in those months too. I will point that out. But the guy is a 7-time All-Star. He's still throwing triple digits. Having him along with Bednar will only make Bednar better. And I think that that's something every Pirates fan would be happy to hear. So I think that's all we got for today. Andrew, opening day is the Pirates open their season in about 25 minutes. Jason's probably scrambling to finish up some salad or something and get to his laptop where he's got 2 more stories to tweet out before the first pitch is thrown. Any final thoughts here before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting season, man. You can say it about any MLB year, any season, any team going in. It's always one of excitement, especially this time of year. But I think for me personally, this is going to be a heck of a campaign to follow. It's an exciting time to be a Pirates fan. And that doesn't come with, holding the team to scrutiny, holding it accountable and saying, hey, they might still be a year away and they need to spend more money. But in total, there's a lot of young talent here. There's a lot of people to be excited about. And I'm most curious to see, does this young talent stick? Which guys pan out? Which guys don't? These are storylines that are going to be a heck of a blast to follow along with. So can't wait for it and can't wait to get after it with you, man. What about yourself?
I think the same thing. Growing up in Western Pennsylvania, reading the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette every day from like 3rd grade to now, this has been a dream job of mine. I'm super excited to document this team season alongside one of my best buddies, Andrew, and a mentor of mine, Jason Mackey, for this awesome, news outlet. It's going to be incredibly fun. I don't know what this season has entailed, but I do know that there are great stories to be told, and we will be there to document them all. We'll have a lot of video content. We'll have a lot of podcasts and a lot of fun stuff from game 1 to game 162 and possibly, games after 162. But we'll wrap it up for now. Pirates and Marlins soon to be underway. He's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. You just checked out our opening day pregame show brought to you by the North Shore Tavern. Check that place out. Right across the street from PNC Park, a lot of great stuff. You can check out all of our great stuff at post-gazette.com or on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network. Take care.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.